Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Star Wars Minute. It's the daily podcast where we analyze, scrutinize, and celebrate the Star Wars movies 1 minute at a time. I'm Pete the Retailer from PeteTheRetailer.com.
I'm Alex Robinson from AlexRobinson.fun.
It's fun now, huh? I'm Josh Flanagan from iFanboy.com, which I guess I should change to something else for many reasons, but I didn't know it could be .fun. So,
Oh, there's a whole world opening up now.
yeah. For me, the internet stopped in like 2006.
Right.
Hip hop stopped in 1993. The internet stopped in 2006. It's all fine.
It's good. It's all good. Well, thanks for joining us, Josh. Welcome to the new season.
Now you guys have been doing. Do you know when was the first episode of this? Not counting Bantha or Bantha.
Oh, you mean like ever?
Like when was the first episode of Star Wars Minute? New Hope.
Well, we should point out that this is now our 10th season now.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So, but I feel like the first time we did two. I feel like we did two shows in 1 year.
Yeah.
At one point at the beginning.
Okay, so it's been about 10 years.
Almost.
Yeah,
I think 2003. I mean, not 2003. That would be 20 years ago. 2013.
Okay.
Would be. I think that was our first season.
So then my question is, are you guys okay?
We can see the end of the tunnel. That's the.
And I assume you have the dual thing of, oh, thank God this is almost over, and what am I going to do without this?
Yeah.
That's that fighting constantly with them, the two ideas. Ink Banthas. I wanted to say Bantha Tracks so bad, but that's not it. That was the newsletter?
Yes.
Bantha Tracks? Okay.
In an effort to drive traffic to our video channel, you can watch the show on YouTube now. If viewers watch, you can get Morse code for my blinks. And it spells out a message. So I encourage everyone to try that. Check it out.
So asking for help slowly.
Like when you first started doing this and I would talk with you guys about Star Wars, I was like, all right, we're all good. We're on the same level. I'm pretty good at it. But now I am starting to feel like I've been left behind. And so I feel like
that. We still maintain we are casual hardcore viewers. So I like talking to civilians who are into Star Wars, maybe more than people who are hardcore into Star Wars.
Well,
but
but I think you. I mean,
Josh a civilian.
No, I was gonna say.
Okay, sorry. No, I just meant that you're not a Star Wars specific podcaster.
No, that's true. I really have tended to focus hard on the years between 1977 and 1983.
Yes,
really, that is where like I have come to accept the fact, like maybe it's not all for me, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. But here we are talking about it anyway. So
that's a great segue into.
Yeah. That's true. We are talking today about Minute 6. Minute 6 of Solo, a Star Wars story now available on Blu-ray and digital. Minute 6 starts with Han Solo saying he doesn't think he's ever going to learn.
Correction, at this point his name is Han.
Oh, yeah, it's true. It starts with Han something, Han nothing.
Han Bertelstein.
Han Snow.
Saying he doesn't think he's ever going to learn. And it ends with a bright light shining upon the lair of the white worm. Yeah, we start off, speaking of movies that happened between the years of 1977 and 1983, we start off with a very kind of ramped up, almost kind of like they saw Empire Strikes Back and they're like, can we do something a little bit like that? Let's turn it way up too high. Because it's like glowing all blue with a couple of red dots. And it's an interesting...
I thought you meant content-wise, because content-wise, it's pure Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, it's Return of the Jedi, but stylistically,
it's
very it's like bathed in blue with little red dots all over, and I like
circular,
but it is hard to see. We talked about this a little bit last week. I like this vibe. I like what they were going for. I like they were doing stylistically, trying to do something interesting, but it's hard to see sometimes. And there's 1 or 2 points where it looks almost like a black light too, like is it a rave or something?
It's an interesting way to look at it. I think I had that through the whole thing, just to be really general right from the beginning. And I watched the movie all the way through. Just for the record, I saw this in the theater on an early night because I had to watch it for my podcast, and there was no one there. And this is before pandemic. Yeah. And that stuck with me. I was like, oh, it was me and another guy. Because I saw it on like Thursday night. I'll go. And I had remembered like, oh, it was super crowded when I went to see whatever the one before this one was. What was
Last
the one
Jedi.
right before? Okay.
Right.
Well, obviously, yeah, that was super crowded. And like I went to this with just no one there. And I was like, that's not good.
Crazy times.
But which is just so strange. But anyway, I enjoyed it. Like when I think about it, I thought, oh, actually, and no one liked it, but I was like, oh, I didn't expect anything of it. It was fine. But I kind of was like, man, I probably shouldn't watch it again. That's kind of what I thought. But as I was watching this time, preparing for this, what I noticed was that there's a lot of it that makes you start to feel like it's familiar. Like, oh, this feels like this world. And then if you focus too hard on it, you go, but it isn't. And that's sort of my main thing through like, if you just stand back and remove, take your glasses off if you need them, and just live there for a little bit. It's fine. Don't think about it too hard, which is what we're going to do.
Right.
That's when you end up with
this is like the complete opposite of that.
Yeah. So, that said,
yeah, we're in the layer of the white worm. What's your as we see her here? What's your take on Lady Proxima, Josh?
my first thing that I was thinking is, and it relates to sort of basically the season of Boba Fett, is that there are a lot of straight up English speaking aliens, and I was like, I don't remember this being a thing. Like they used to talk. There's a I don't you'll know the names or whatever, but there's the guy who has the gun, one of her minions. You know, and he just sounds exactly like Jabba the Hutt, like exactly.
Yeah.
And I was like, that feels like Star Wars. And then at the same time, you know, Lady Proxima, who feels like an X-Men character. Or something. Maybe it's one of the Avengers villains, I think, anyway.
The Brood, are you thinking
something
of?
like that. But yeah, it feels much more like a Marvel name.
Cross Mojo with the name, yeah. But
yeah. I think that one of those three villains in the Infinity, one of Thanos' like people is something Proxima. Proxima Midnight. That's the character's name.
Proxima Midnight.
Which is a Hickman character from Avengers, I believe. Anyway, but it's so like animated, cartoony, but straight up normal English speaking voice. And I thought, well, the villains, I think historically don't really speak English. In the
prequels, the prequels is where that really started. Because of course,
but they've gone
most famously.
Right.
Yeah, but even those, like, they had a crazy accent that we still remember to this day. You know, like,
I think
I don't think
that
they're
was
eager
intentional to be like, oh, we're not going to do accents here.
Yeah, no, and that's fine. But this felt more like an animation actor. You know what I mean? Who came in to do an episode of, you know, whatever cartoon people watch.
It is Lady Proxima's voice. We talked about it yesterday or on Friday, I think, or somewhere last week. It's Linda Hunt, famous actress Linda Hunt, who's the shout out Mapes and Dune and Mrs. Oxheart and Popeye. That's all the movies that people have, right?
That was a name that I was like, I know that name, but I haven't thought. That's a name it's a long time.
Long time. Yeah, she's like a 4 foot tall lady.
Now, we've compared this whole sort of setup here to a musical before.
Yes.
And this scene
Are we doing a musical again this season? We totally should. We should be. Yes.
Well, this scene where Proxima is talking to Kira, being like, again, with more exposition, like, are you sure you want to do this? You came to me as an orphan, living in the muck. Like, no one talks like this. No one, but it did have a musical quality to it. Like, I felt she was about to start singing about how she takes care of orphans here underground and how they should all be grateful to her. And they also sing Lady Proxima.
Little Girls from Annie.
Yeah. And then the refrain is like, I've got a bad feeling about this. Over and over and over.
Yeah, she does mention, she says, Kira, remember the silo? We pulled you out of that. And it's like, I like that that's just throwaway, like that we're not like even if you look on Wikipedia, it's just like, yeah, the silo was something on Corellia.
Mm-hmm. Don't worry, they'll explain
say much about it, but it's like,
and make it worse.
Yeah. That's a Han silo.
Silo, a Star Wars story. That's the prequel to this.
She reminds me of an Evil Dead monster. That's what she reminds me of. Like, do you know those Evil Dead, like Evil Dead 2? There's one point where a zombie has like a long head, a long neck with a head on the end of it, and Bruce Campbell's swinging at it, and it's like so clearly just a head on the end of like a fishing pole that you know, off camera they're kind of moving it around. That's what Lady Proxima reminds me of.
I mean, the thing that came out of it is that I don't really have any thoughts about it. Like it didn't really feel like Star Wars. It didn't really feel good or bad. It's fairly forgettable. Like if you were to ask me about this movie and I hadn't watched it, I would not have remembered that. I was like, all right, there's like a alien lady thing.
In the beginning.
Yeah,
but it truly is content.
Yeah. There's a thing that happened.
I forgot who. I should look it up because I'm going to keep referring to it, but I forgot who said it, but somebody at the time that the movie was out, they were like, Solo was basically like a bonkers 90s EU novel come to life.
Yeah.
And I dig that. Like once I was like, I was kind of parsing how I felt about it afterwards. I was like, I enjoyed that kind of, yeah, but what, like, and then it was like, oh yeah, it did feel like just kind of a wild, like 90s Star Wars book up on screen.
It's a silly's Han Solo heist movie.
Yeah.
Like that's what it's a heist flick and stuff happens and the less you don't try to fit it into your idea of what makes you happy about Star Wars, which is the same thing with all of this, I think, is that you can kind of appreciate bits of it. Because there's a lot of it that feel like Star Wars and a lot that just doesn't. And I think that it's sort of at conflict with itself there, but who knows what Star Wars even is anymore.
It's true. I don't. And I work here. Parallels between this and Return of the Jedi here were like are myriad at this point, because then we get Han Solo's talking to the worm and says, well, it's actually Kira, I think it's at this point, who says like, oh, whatever, we'll whatever we lost, we'll make it back to you. We'll pay you extra, something like that.
Yeah, Kira says we'll double, or at some point she says we'll double it. I think it's like, at this point she says we'll double it.
Right. but Han Solo is like, Jabba, whatever, we'll
just Han.
What?
Just
no,
Han.
Later in Return of the Jedi
okay.
when he's Han Solo.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah.
I mean, General Solo says, what is it? Jabba will pay you, what is he? We'll pay you double, we'll pay you triple, something like that. You're throwing away a fortune, don't be a fool.
Yeah, something like that.
And so that echo of that, where it's like you get the same idea, appearing before the worm and offering to pay off the worm.
And holding a thermal detonator too. Both of
well, we'll get to that, but or is that in this? That is in this.
Yeah, that is in this.
There you go.
He fakes he holds up a rock as a thermal detonator.
Yes.
Well, this is one of the sort of generalized notes I had about watching this, is that there's a lot of things in here. I wrote this one. I can't tell if going to the thermal detonator is good or lazy, meaning that in the old days, before the dark times, before the Disney. Anyway, it's so easy. There was that little rush of fan films, the fan fiction era.
Sure.
Troops and all that stuff. And when they would do something that made you think of something specific in Star Wars, it wasn't a big deal. It would be like, oh, they're talking to me. And now, constantly this postmodern referencing of itself. So like the thermal detonator being the thing, I was like, I can't tell if that's giving me a happy feeling because it makes me remember, or it's annoying me because they just are doing the same thing. So like it happens in one of the minutes later when the stormtroopers or whoever are saying, move along. Like every time they say one of those lines, it seems to have a lessening effect on how much I want to hear that reference to itself. And this movie's a lot of push-pull with that, I think, as I like, oh, this is making me think of it, but is that enough work on your part as a filmmaker?
Well, it's also, we have to remember, you're a civilian, so this doesn't bother you as much, but we have to remember that it's aimed at a wide swath of people in between people who don't care and us, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of, there's a huge swath of the populace that's in between.
Yes,
like, oh yeah,
that's
like
true.
My friend who asked me like, was Han Solo ever in a movie like Star Wars? Like she's at the low end, and we're at the extreme opposite end where it's just kind of like we've heard this stuff too many times. But everybody in between is probably like and maybe at best they'll recognize it and be like, oh, he said that stormtrooper thing.
Yeah,
it's an excellent
probably
point.
A good way of
It is a good way of looking at it, but again, like that makes it like they're not making this movie for me. Right. I am a 44-year-old dad who wants to be entertained but doesn't have time for much of this.
It's a little discouraging to me that we're 6 minutes in and we've already had 3 echoes of original trilogy Han Solo. We had him cornered by a Greedo, we had the thermal detonator, and we have don't throw away, I will pay you double.
Right.
So that to me is a little
but it is, I mean, it's not, the thermal detonator is the only one that's kind of direct one-to-one. You know what I mean? The other ones are there. They're similar enough that we're...
The situations we've seen Han Solo in
yes,
virtually identically in terms of, he's being cornered because an alien wants money from him. Come on, we're going to see the boss. It's very, So
I mean, these are the leitmotifs of the whole thing.
Not big crimes, but
no.
It to me, it kind of sets the tone of like what we should expect for the rest of the movie. Like this is going to be very reverential and
yeah. Right. Well, like Pete says, there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. So then it comes down to the subjective idea. Well, how does this make me feel as a Star Wars person of a certain ilk?
Right.
And I think that's what I found myself sort of wondering as I watched the movie. And it comes and goes, I think, depending on the first time it's the best, but the first time, if it's enjoyable enough, you're like, oh, I enjoyed that, it's fine. Then when you have to go back in, you look too closely and you're like, it's kind of weak. And I mean, one of the other things, and I don't know how much this will come up. We're early. This is the first week with a guest. Sorry. I wonder.
It's a Star Wars story, so we had guests during the first week because there's no crawl. Tony Thaxton was here. That's why the lounge is being redecorated.
I see.
Sorry.
Just missed it by that
That's
much.
fine.
I probably didn't notice because you have similar interests to this. There's still a lot of records around and stuff, but they're more bizarre. They're bizarre albums. That's
no, mine are totally like on brand.
Yeah.
Like middle-aged punk records. Aging hipster. What I kept wondering about was like, where is this movie? Because there's the directors who switched off halfway through. One point was aiming at being sort of a comedy, and the other one being Ron Howard, who's many things but not particularly funny unless he's doing a narration on Arrested Development. And I just kept trying to watch, like, why this is weird? Is this why? Like, I don't think they did a terrible job. I don't think it was a whole pastiche where it's like, oh, this part's terrible and this isn't. But I found myself looking for it and thinking about it a lot. So I'm curious what you guys
I attribute any flaws to that.
Right.
Like either one of them had complete control, it would have been a dynamic, great film. But any problems, it's just because of the, it's like peanut butter and
fish.
The band.
Fish. Yeah, peanut butter and
Abe Vigoda.
Peanut butter and the band. Cripple Creek.
Yeah.
Well, interestingly, so we have this is going to be my bracket draft of the season. I think it's a tweet from Jake Kasdan, saying outlining 52 useless solo factoids and tidbits.
Nice.
So he's saying there's no real behind the scenes making of book. There's no commentary. So he just outlined a couple of things that he.
He's a screenwriter, yes.
Yes, yeah, he's one of a handful of screenwriters on this, but
right.
But the finished product is ostensibly mainly the child of Lawrence Kasdan and Ron Howard are the kind of nominal authors of this, director and screenwriter director. Jake Kasdan was one of many who helped out, and some of the stuff was remnants from Lord and Miller and all that. And I had thought that this kind of fake out with the thermal detonator rock seemed like kind of a Miller and Lord thing. It's very kind of like modern, comedy wise. But according to him, it seems like that came out of that was a Kasdan thing. This will make you guys groan and dislike this more. That according to Jake Kasdan, he says, of course, Han Solo told Princess Leia this story of how he and Kira broke out of the den of the White Worm. That's what gave Leia the idea to do the thermal detonator in Jabba's palace.
Well,
I mean, if anybody can do that, it's Lawrence Kasdan.
I guess.
You know what I mean? Like you got to give them to like that's
yeah,
that's true.
Also, it's not real. They didn't put it in the movie. Like if you think of
that's actually that's fact 53 is that none of this is real.
No, I mean,
they
but
put it at the end as to not spoil it, but like also
if you have
it happened.
If you have it in your mind as a connection between those as the creator,
right?
That's interesting. Putting it in the movie and explaining it, like, and this is not my problem to deal with, naming a character by a really dumb reason,
right?
That's a problem. Like explaining it, but having it sort of in the background, like, oh, okay, that you make that make sense when you come up with it, and that kind of works. I was going to bring up that
I wish that they had included it. I wish that Han had said, I got to tell somebody about that someday. And so I wish he had
look straight to camera.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Like that's going to work one of these days. Yeah, something like that.
I think that like you're talking to a rock and you made a clicking sound with your like those are jokes that came out of Last Jedi, which was like the first time in, I don't even remember who it was. I guess it was Poe Dameron. Like they were making jokes, and I was like, what? This like it didn't feel like it fit, and whatever. Like humor goes on and moves, and it's going to change over time, and this isn't going to feel like it's from the 70s. But those jokes to me just are like they're so not Star Wars in my mind. But again, not my. That's all of my comments will be like I'm not going to go ahead anymore and
not
say
my Star Wars.
no, that's true, but I'm not going to say that I'm objectively right about it. It's just what you expect from a thing.
I do like that it's not like he's the only one who's doing that, and then she's like, no, it's not. That's a rock. Like that's it's not kind of it's not fooling anybody. It's kind of going through, and it's
she's just. Proxima's terrible at improv. That's all that happened.
Right, yeah.
She was supposed to play along with it. And they would have had a good time.
There's strings holding me up.
She
What's going on?
She could have said, new choice, and it would have been fine.
I have a gun. Well, one thing I did like is that he takes the thermal detonator and he throws it at the glass and breaks the window, and you finally get some light in the movie.
Yes.
So, and we get to see Lady Proxima's face close up, which I was happy to see.
Same thing happens to me in direct sunlight.
Yeah. It's a shame, really. Anytime anybody throws a rock.
I thought that Lady Proxima, her face looked like a combination of it looked like the Spaceballs frog to me.
The Spaceballs frog.
The hello, my honey, hello, my baby.
That's the xenomorph. That's the alien.
Right.
That's So that is what.
Or the space slug. Like. I guess that's what it made me think of.
Yeah.
Yeah, that and yeah. So, but anyway, Josh, what are your feelings about Spaceballs? Pro or con?
Pro, but entirely for different reasons than I was pro when I was a kid.
Okay.
Like it's aged well with me because like now I'm like, hey, these old Jewish guy jokes are the best, like in a way that they weren't when I was a kid.
Right. I can see that.
Yeah.
Well, then they run outside, and the car's waiting for them, which is nice. They they hop out, run through the doors in the chaos that created by breaking the windows, and run. Oh, this is for tomorrow's. Look at that. I have a stray note, an errant note from tomorrow. I think
Teaser.
just at the end of this, just the end of this, we get the bright light shining upon the layer of the white worm. They don't make it outside yet. So scratch what I just said. I'm not going to edit it out. I'm just telling everybody to forget it.
Okay.
Come back tomorrow if you want to hear about that.
Podcast verite.
Exactly.
This is like Let It Be or Get Back, where we're just not editing out any of the mistakes.
Right. Now, if I was really funny, I would now just quickly change my shirt and then come back and do an edit there. So you would like the video people watching this on YouTube, they would hear me say like, yeah, I'm not going to edit that at all. And then suddenly, boom, I'm wearing a different shirt. And I'm like, okay, so, but it's too much effort.
That's a lot of work.
Sorry, YouTube.
Theoretically, you could then just shoot that later, cut it out, and then put it back.
I guess so.
Sorry.
So it's not a matter of you not being
Production
funny.
brain.
It's just more that you just don't want to put the. It's more that you just don't want to.
It's also not that funny.
Yeah, I want to throw in more visual jokes for the YouTubers, to encourage people to go over there and.
Well, effort versus reward. Effort versus reward.
That's true.
There's your real question.
Right.
Yeah. Well, here's something I wanted to. Do we have anything else specific for number 6?
I thought I did, but no, it's for minute 7. So
my last note was, what's with all the hooded fish guys in masks? That's a thing now.
That's a thing now.
Like they used to make monster masks and rubber things. Then they did CGI for a while, and that's just like, that was a fish. Put him in a hood and a mask.
Yeah,
they did the monster masks. Well, I went out and bought because after we started last week with Tony Thaxton, I was like, I got to get the visual dictionary because that's a good thing to have. And our accounting team told me that if I want to write it off, I have to include something from it in every single episode. So every episode, I'm going to try to include a factoid from the visual dictionary. So
how many minutes are there? Because you might run dry.
Oh no, this thing is a never-ending cornucopia of useless trivia.
The right thing.
So yeah, we said that the
There's a
that
fish guy in a mask.
or the street urchins were like a team of music of like from a musical, and I wanted to call attention to, I don't know if you can see him here, but Jaglio here,
Okay.
who it says here that a former dancer, Jaglio has adapted her balance and coordination into a self-invented style of martial arts. The nimble thief can shimmy into tight spaces. Do we wish there was a dance number?
Well, we're going to need it for the musical.
Couldn't wait.
Yeah. Now,
That's that old Jewish humor you're talking about.
yeah, there you go.
It's exactly what that was. Thank you for explaining it.
I'm assuming, so if this was Star
Jaglio.
Wars, solo a Star Wars musical, we would have to come in. The opening number would be the kind of talking about it would be all the urchins and stuff doing their bit. Right. We wouldn't even, there'd be no kind of setup other than, just them doing their thing, setting up Lady Proxima as the, like we toil and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that would lead into the bit where she explains how things used to be, and then the great guilt trip song.
I'm going to say
right.
for the musical, we should just go ahead and combine this with the scene at the terminal that they were about to have. And just have Lady Proxima confronting them there as they're trying to escape, because in a musical you can't have like unlimited sets. You can't have a big chase scene and stuff like that.
This is really an excellent point.
Yeah, so I feel like they can combine those into one. They explaining how they're about to escape with the kryptonite or whatever it is.
Well, I feel like you could use a little bit of the chase. Like they could run away, close curtain. They could run in front of the curtain and then run back in front of the curtain, and then that'll give you enough time to rotate the set, depending on the what's your production level.
Running,
what's
or would
the
they have
budget
would they have fake cars around their waists as they ran around? Like
now you're
chasing
talking.
each other.
You guys are off track at minute 6 in a big way, and I think that
this is
bodes
gonna
well.
By the end of this, we're gonna have
I know.
a musical written.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, perhaps we will reconvene. On that note, perhaps we will reconvene tomorrow for minute 7, because I already had a note for it. Josh, can you come back tomorrow for minute 7?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
All right, excellent. Listeners, hopefully you can come back. No, listeners, not participators.
I mean, he's listening.
Co-host. I mean, don't listen, Alex. Don't listen. If you want to watch, in addition to listening, as we said, we're trying to throw in some extra jokes here, maybe for the viewers at home. That's right, viewers, StarWarsMinute.com/YouTube will get you to our YouTube page where we're putting up this whole season on video. Plus, we've got our whole season of Book of Boba Fett coverage that we just did, all of last season, talking about The Last Jedi. That's up there. There's a couple of Mandalorian episodes up there, and a handful of other things. Hey, I think there's even an ancient live show with one and only Mr. Josh Flanagan up there.
Oh, the one in the bar?
Yeah.
From the holiday special?
Yeah. So
shot on 8mm.
Yeah, exactly.
Were we ever so young?
It's a silent movie, but it's up there. So if you go check all those out, meet us back here tomorrow. We'll be here with a brand new episode of Star Wars Minute.
Star Wars Minute.